Hey YouTube, this is Shazam, and this is going to be a new series I'm starting where I journal my thoughts and progress on various different series I check out throughout the year. It's sort of like a media journal, but there's going to be a twist. See, I made this bingo board composed of various different stuff that I've had on my backlog, stuff I've just been meaning to check out but I haven't gotten to, new stuff that seems up my alley, and stuff that seems out of my alley. So how it works is going to be like this. Like bingo, I'm going to try and mark off 5 spots in a row. I'll probably go further than that simply because this is me checking out stuff I've been meaning to check out. Unlike regular bingo, I am able to choose where I want to mark off my next spot, and I am able to work towards marking off multiple spots at once, with some limitations. The first limitation is that I cannot force myself into a bingo. I can't start in the top right corner and then deliberately only focus on stuff that in the same row, column, or diagonal to get myself a bingo. I have to space it out, unless, of course, we get later in where there's no more spots, but that's a whole other story. The second is that while I can engage in multiple series at once, I actually have to finish a full installment before I can mark it. So if I'm watching a TV series, I can only mark it after I finish the first season. If I'm reading a book series, I need to read an entire book. If I'm playing a game series, I need to play an entire game, so on, so forth. You get it. Got it? Good. Okay. So the first entry in this video journal series is going to be The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Specifically, the first chronological entry in the series, The Magician's Nephew. The story follows the young Diggory Kirk as he's tricked by his Uncle Andrew, who's an aspiring magician, into using magic rings to travel between worlds to save his friend Polly Plummer, who was also tricked by Andrew into using the rings to travel between worlds. He's a magician, he's evil. Anyway, on this journey, Diggory and Polly encounter Jadis, who you may know as the White Witch of Narnia, but this is a prequel story, so she's only the Queen of Charn, which is a destroyed alternate reality that she's the only living person left. After a series of misadventures, like accidentally bringing Jadis back to Earth, Uncle Andrew being a conniving simp for Jadis, and then trying to get Jadis back off of Earth, they end up in Narnia, specifically as it's being created by Aslan. Now, in Narnia, like I mentioned, they witnessed the creation of Narnia by Aslan, and Diggory is given a quest by Aslan to seek these apples of immortality, which will, when planted, grow into a tree that will protect Narnia, and also the apples have a healing quality, which Diggory will use to save his sick mother, who's back on Earth. Now, I've seen the Chronicles of Narnia before. I've specifically seen the 2005 Disney movie. I think that is the movie that, specifically got me into fantasy as a genre. And it also shaped the types of fantasy I enjoyed. I've always preferred the lower fantasy stories where they're set in the real world. There's real world elements like Percy Jackson and Harry Potter. Much more to, high fantasy like Lord of the Rings and Avatar. Yet, despite my fondness for the movie, I've never touched any of the books in the series. They were at my school, people told me about them, I never touched them. Until now. I've touched some of Lewis's other writings before. I've slowly been making my way through the Screwtape Letters. So I went into Magician's Nephew expecting that same sort of, depth in the writing. Screwtape's Letters isn't particularly deep. It's not that deep, but it is, there's so much, dissection of, actions and why people behave the way they do. I was expecting the same sort of level of intellect going into this children's fantasy novel series. I was wrong. Even for a children's fantasy series, it's incredibly light. It's only 94 pages. But in exchange for quantity, Lewis makes up for it with simply effective quality. Each character and item and location and sensation, it's described with just the perfect amount of detail to help you, the reader, visualize it the way Lewis wants you to visualize it. The specific thing that comes to mind is the creation of Narnia, where it's described that Aslan is singing the world into existence, you know? And Diggory, he's hearing all this. He can't tell if the sound is coming from any single direction, if it's coming straight from the ground itself, or if it's surrounding him all over. It's because it's an omnipresent song. It's a song of life. It's obviously going to be everywhere. And as Aslan keeps singing, there are stars appearing in the sky, and as they appear, it's like another voice added to the choir. It's incredibly magical to, like, sit there and, like, envision that, to imagine yourself there as that's happening. And, of course, I want to add this, because it transitions to my next point. Diggory and Polly both absolutely love this song. They find it to be the most beautiful and enchanting song of all time. Meanwhile, Jadis and Uncle Andrew, they're both magicians. They want to use magic to control the world for themselves. That's sort of how magic works here, that you can use magic in a beneficial way, but it has to be a very specific way. Actively choosing to use it for your own ends is not that way. That's the way Jadis and Uncle Andrew do it. And so when they hear the song, they find it deeply disturbing and frightening, and they want to, like, leave Narnia as soon as possible. They want to kill Aslan as soon as they get the chance. Jadis, like, tries to huck an iron rod at his head and just bounces off. And Uncle Andrew's talking about, like, oh, I could make this alternate world like a hunting resort, and we can hunt that lion for sport. Like, he's so evil. He's so willfully ignorant. He does not want to accept that this is, like, what good actually is, and that he's a total fraud. Because that's all part of the Christian allegory. If you didn't know about that, about this 75-year-old children's book series, it's deeply inspired by Christian themes. But I think it's done very well, and very cleverly, I think. It's both faithful to the lesson learned while still changing enough to be unique for the story. It's what, you know, so it's like you don't have to actively be a Christian to enjoy this series. It'll just kind of, like, elevate your appreciation of these things that reference the Bible and Scripture. It's very much like Percy Jackson with how it uses Greek myth to convey its story and themes. Like, for example, when they bring Jadis into the world of Narnia, they brought evil into the world of Narnia. And Aslan later on says, as Adam, you know, the humans from Earth, as Adam has done the harm, Adam's race shall help heal it. Now, this is already, like kind of neat, as, like, oh, I know who they're talking about. They're talking about the Pevensie siblings, who are going to show up in the next installment, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because they help defeat Jadis for good. But if you're, like, familiar with Scripture, you'll know that this is also a reference to, like, the fall of man. Adam and Eve, they caused the fall of man, but God incarnated himself as man and would later come to redeem mankind. It's sort of, I don't know, I just thought it was neat that even their parallels have parallels. You get what I'm saying? Like, they parallel the parallel. It's not just like, oh, this is a thing from the Bible, I'm going to loosely reference it. It's very deliberate. I don't know, I thought that was neat. And similarly, because this is, like, the Narnia creation story, we're going to double down on, like, the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve stuff. There's a scene where Diggory, on his quest to retrieve the golden apple, he enters a garden where there's, like, fruits of many kinds. And he finds the apple of youth, the apples of immortality, which will help defend Narnia and also heal his sick mother. And Jadis shows up in this garden. She takes one for herself, and she's trying to goad Diggory into taking one for himself as well. But unlike the serpent in the original, like, Garden of Eden story, who's talking to Eve, trying to get her to eat it for her own gain, Jadis is trying to get Diggory to do it for the gain of his mother, as opposed to a selfish desire we're lured with a selfless desire. And, obviously the apples in scripture is caused death. And not in like the literal sense that they were poisonous, but that it made death possible. And while these apples are very specifically apples that heal and give life, it's a neat little inversion. It's something that really highlights how Narnia's history and Earth's history mirror each other. They aren't the same, but they have the same patterns, the same structures. It's like poetry. It rhymes. And the big thing I didn't mention about this story, which doesn't really get brought up in the rest of the series, to my knowledge, is the wood between the worlds. Now, this is like a nexus point. It's what ties the Narnia multiverse together. So each world in the wood between the worlds appears as a pool of water on the forest floor. Now, this forest, it's like the most quiet and beautiful forest you could really imagine. It's so dense. The trees are so densely packed that the light shining down through the canopy comes out as green because there's so much leaf and foliage blocking it. And it's so quiet. You can almost hear the trees growing. It's a very wonderful, dreamlike place. And it's also this place where you can access all the different worlds. You can access Earth. You can access Charn. You can access Narnia in the form of pools of water that act as portals. What's interesting about each of these worlds is that they're very much not the same as each other. Like, Charn is distinctly very old. When Diggory and Polly end up in Charn, it's pretty much at the end of its lifespan. They talk about how the sun looks like that, how it's so ominous and red looking because it's old. Earth is just kind of like in the middle of its life. And then Narnia is just like newly born. Like, before the story even concludes, it's barely even a full day old. And it's interesting that like we have all these like different like worlds with different geographies, different timelines. We only get to see the 3. We never see any other worlds in Narnia, to my knowledge. And I'm just kind of wondering, it'd be so cool if we got to see that. I'm sure there's like a world that's just Chinese, right? There's got to be like a Chinese world where like instead of like Rome and Britain being the dominant empires, like China actually did expand west. I don't know. I'm only saying that because of like the when you get to heaven and it's Chinese video. I don't know. That's about all I have to say on The Magician's Nephew. If you like fantasy stories that feature characters discovering new worlds that they never knew about, and then having to learn about the different rules and concepts that define those worlds, I'd highly recommend picking it up. Like I said earlier, it is a children's story, but it doesn't talk down to you, and its sense of humor isn't immature. It's very much just like a sweet, cozy, laid-back adventure. I'd give it a solid B+. I've got a couple other things on the chopping block coming up next. I'm currently reading this copy of Daredevil, Born Again, and I'm watching the first season of Bleach, so that those two things shouldn't take too long to finish. I've also started playing Kingdom Hearts at the request of my friend Hydro, but since that's in the same row as Narnia, it's probably gonna not be the next thing I touch unless somehow I finish all of Narnia. I don't think that's gonna happen. This is a really thick book. I have to read 6 other books. Not happening. Not unless it's got pictures in it. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you've got any opinions on the Chronicles of Narnia, or a series on my bingo card that you want me to hone in on next, leave a comment below. I'll check in with you guys on the next vlog. See ya.